one of the most touchy things with blended families is you'll see people that say, my children come before everything. And I understand that on a biological level. What I don't understand it is on a spiritual level or on a level that says I want my kids to learn about healthy marriage.
You see a lot of family like loyalty to extended family. Whether it's grandparents or even siblings, and oftentimes the spouse can feel like they're not included or that their family is not accepting.
The intentionality around this has to be extraordinarily present. So again, you are creating an environment where you've created a new family. And I will also say this, because this is probably one of the, we've kind of danced around this, but let me just kind of fire right in.
Your blended family has a 100% chance of success when you do it God's way. We're Blended Kingdom Families, and we want to provide biblical resources to heal and restore families with a message of hope for the next generation.
Hey guys, welcome to the Blended Kingdom Families podcast. We're so glad to be back with you. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, you guys, I just want to encourage you to go do that right now. And if you are watching on our YouTube channel, be sure to hit the bell so that you can be notified every Monday whenever a podcast is released. And you can listen to us on Audible on any podcast platform anywhere.
It's good to be with you.
It's good to be with you too.
Absolutely. I love your face.
Well, I hope you do because you're married to me. You are stuck with me.
All right, so supporting your spouse versus family loyalty. This was something we've seen a lot. And we experienced this a lot in the sense of, hey, I have a new marriage that I'm called to be in priority with, and then I have conflicting things about, maybe my extended family or co-enmeshment or codependency, or this idea that they are somehow dictating my new family. And if I said all that and you're like, oh, like the bells are ringing, man, you know what I'm talking about. Because we see a lot of conflict in blended families where it is because of the extended family and their allegiance to doing things that are in line with them, their family versus their new family, their marriage.
Well, and I think you see this also too with spouses who have a loyalty to their biological children over their new spouse. We see this a lot. And we didn't need the American Psychological Association to tell us to know this, but the American Psychological Association highlights that blended families experience higher levels of stress due to conflicting loyalty and role confusion, which we've talked about role confusion before on a previous episode. So be sure to go back and look for that. But yeah, this is huge in blended families.
So the way this all structures is God first, your marriage, and then your kids, and the priorities go down from there.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about is when those priorities get out of line.
Yeah.
And where you're prioritizing different relationships above your spouse's relationship, and where that can be challenging, and where you need to take specific steps for understanding how that should work.
Yeah, and I think when you're like, okay, so what is loyalty, and what is family loyalty? And this is family loyalty is when you begin to prioritize the needs, feelings, and stability of whether it's your biological children, your stepchildren, an extended family over your spouse. Yeah. Whereas when it's your loyalty, when the loyalty is to the spouse and the marriage first, as it should be, in our in priority, then it would be that your spouse's feelings come first. That it's more about their needs, whether that's emotional needs, mental, physical, things like that.
Well, and let me add a different phrase here. Often at the expense of your spouse.
Sure.
So again, we're not saying that like your kids' needs are not important.
No, you don't neglect your kids.
Or their feelings are not important.
Yeah, you provide for them.
Where it becomes challenging is where it's at the expense of your husband or your wife. So it's in spite or absent of them, where those things are becoming more important than the needs of your spouse.
Sure.
When there's no extenuating circumstances that would put them above that.
Sure.
So we're not talking about in essence of trauma or in emergency situations. That's not what we're discussing here. This is normal everyday life, and all of a sudden at the expense of our spouse, we're reacting and making decisions that are in their best interest over the best interest of my spouse.
Right. And this is where you can see the tension between the two, right? So like family loyalty and you have spouse loyalty is oftentimes we'll see where a child in a blended family feels threatened by the new spouse. So the step parent, so to speak, or when the spouse expects you to prioritize them in disagreements or over the children. So exactly like what you were saying is, the children feel one way, but your spouse feels the other way. And so how do you even begin to navigate that?
Yeah. The intentionality around this has to be extraordinarily present. So again, you are creating an environment where you've created a new family. And I will also say this, because this is probably one of we've kind of danced around this, but let me just kind of fire right in. One of the most touchy things with blended families is you'll see people that say, my children come before everything. And I understand that on a biological level. What I don't understand it is on a spiritual level or on a level that says I want my kids to learn about healthy marriage.
That's good.
Because if that is the way you're acting, you're not teaching them about healthy marriage. You're teaching them the opposite of healthy marriage.
Right.
But that doesn't mean their needs are not important. That's why I talk about intentionality around how we prioritize.
Yeah.
We talked about in an earlier episode, we talked about date nights. This is a great one. This is an easy example. Date nights are a time for you to prioritize the time that you spend with your spouse.
Yeah.
And that should be at the expense of time that you're spending at home. Or time that maybe, and this is probably a little more sensitive, time that maybe away from your kid's sports. Maybe your kid doesn't need to play that sport every day.
Yeah.
And you need to budget that time away. That's just one small example of saying, hey, do we really need to do baseball 6 days a week and sign up for these 4 teams? And is that going to cut away from our priority of our date night? Or, hey, do we really need to spend this extra $1,000 on all these sports when we don't have enough money to go on our date night? That's not necessarily hurting the child to say, hey, you can't play on 4 different teams. It's saying, hey, we need to prioritize our marriage.
No, I think that's so good. And I think that, when it comes to, when it comes to just even practical strategies for supporting both your kids and your spouse, and so that you don't have these divided loyalties, I think this is where communicating boundaries comes into place. And this is where you and your spouse have to get together and just have some honest conversations and be able to receive that in a loving and graceful way, but set up boundaries for what the time with the two of you looks like, for what communication is going to look like, for what disciplining your kids is going to look like. You have to have boundaries around that and protect those boundaries. I think it's also the same thing with your kids. You want to ensure that both your spouse and children both feel valued and that they both feel understood. So what does that look like? And how can you guys set parameters and be able to honor those without choosing, without, you having to choose your kids over your spouse, and then your spouse becomes resentful and angry. What measures can you put in place to protect your spouse that time in your marriage, but also give your time and attention to your kids that kids need? Yeah.
I kind of come with the more direct route. I just tell them, like, listen, this time is reserved for, me and your mom, or me and your dad.
Yeah.
Like, I don't make apologies about it. I just tell them, this is what we do. The reason we do this is because our marriage is very important and we want our marriage to be healthy. I think kids by nature, I think at a deep level understand that. I think on their selfish level, which I think all kids have selfish desires, they want all of your time, they want all your energy, they want all your effort, they want all everything. You just have to be very clear about explaining, like, no, this is what we do. Or to my example earlier, hey, this is why you're not going to be able to do this.
Yeah.
Because, hey, we don't do that. And because if we do, we don't have any time for us.
Yeah.
And that's just not the way this is going to work. And I think just communicating very clearly and very matter-of-factly. I know we've talked about this in a previous episode, but there have been times when you and I are going to go on a date night and our kids are like, can we go? And I'm like, no, you're not invited.
Not happening.
And it's not that I don't love them.
Yeah.
I just make sure I tell them, hey, no, I'm taking mom out because that's our time together and you're going to stay here.
Well, and this doesn't just apply to our kids too, but you see a lot of family like loyalty to extended family or whether it's grandparents or even siblings. And oftentimes the spouse can feel like they're not included or that their family is not accepting and things like that. And so I think it's understanding that your marriage is the priority. Next to your relationship with Christ, your marriage and your spouse is the priority. So if anything is put above them or is causing friction, one, you need to listen and be aware. Listen to your spouse. If they are telling you, hey, I'm feeling like this is getting in the way, or whatever, listen and have a conversation, and reevaluate and look at what you guys need to do to get those priorities back into alignment.
I've seen that so much around the holidays. Boy, the sensitivity around prioritizing your family versus your spouse, the sacrificing of your spouse during the holidays is so vast. So, and again, you don't want to step on toes. You're trying to be sensitive, but you need to listen to what your spouse is saying and say, hey, is this something that we need to be doing? Because we didn't join their family. We didn't join your family. We created our own family, and we need to have our own traditions and our own loyalty to our own family.
Yeah.
So much time around that. So again, I want to encourage you guys to have these conversations because there is a growth period that you're going to take from marriage to probably doing this in a really healthy way. And you're not going to be without mistakes. So one, let's have open communication about it. Two, let's have conversations. Just as I talked about the holidays. Maybe now is a good time to say, hey, can we talk about the holidays and what that's going to look like and how I can feel supported? So let's not do it, a day before. Let's do it now. And just taking those necessary steps to ensure that you're putting your spouse as that high priority.
Oh, absolutely. And I think seeking out help if y'all are struggling in this area. I know we have a lot of, it's really one-sided. We'll have people inquire about coaching, and it's a lot of times it's my spouse, they feel one way and their spouse feels the other way, and they're not being put as the priority. So it's like, how do I even function in this marriage anymore? So you guys, if that's you and you are really struggling in this area, we're here to help with that. We have blended family coaching, or seek a biblical counselor that is trained in marriage and family therapy and can help you with this. Yeah.
Don't wait. Take the steps to feel, and so that your spouse feels like a priority. This is not one of those things you want to just kind of let go. And be like, no, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to rock the boat. Because again, every time that happens, that resentment is going to build up. And we've said this before, but unspoken expectations are just premeditated resentments. So if you're not talking about this, you've determined that you're just going to resent them because they don't know what to do or don't do the right things.
Yeah. I love this quote by Dr. Kevin Lehman, and he's a psychologist and author of the New Birth Order book and How to Have a New Kid by Friday, which I have that book. It's a great book. But it says, in a blended family, the husband and wife must remember that the marriage is the foundation of the family. Without a strong foundation, everything else will collapse.
Yeah.
So
take care of it.
Yeah, you've got to take care of it.
Absolutely. Well, guys, hope you've enjoyed this episode. again, this is a very sensitive topic,
Yeah.
but one that we want to make sure that you are actively thinking about or actively pursuing a conversation with your spouse. So guys, hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Be blessed in all that you do.
Hey friends, so glad you were here with us today, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. You can find more resources from Blended Kingdom Families at blendedkingdomfamilies.com. Join us again next time as we talk about more blended family topics. Be blessed in all that you do, and remember, nothing will be impossible with God.